You know, we have a big education revolution going on, and if it were not for individuals like Dave, who is so committed and who goes out and does whatever they can to contribute their gifts and create this revolution, it would never happen. I really believe it is the individuals like that that's going to pull together 600 million people so we can make the change we need to make. Thank you, Dave. I'm going to start by asking you to do a little exercise. I want you to take 3 really deep breaths and hold the third breath for just as long as you can. And while you're doing that, I want you to please pay attention to what you experience as you hold your breath. So shall we try it? Let's go with 1, 2, and hold the third one. I don't want someone turning green and falling in the floor. Anyone still holding? Okay, got some good lungs in here. Okay. Now, I would hope that little exercise would reiterate that we can't live without air, and that you can only hold that air in there so long, and you've got to have a fresh gulp. So what you experienced while you were doing that is part of what we are now teaching our young people. It's to learn to experience their world through their 54 natural senses. We think of 5 that we commonly know, but they actually have 54. That happens to be one of them. It's also the method that we use to teach. We call it self-evident truth, and I think you just gave yourself one certainly self-evident truth. You can't live without air. For all of the money and all of the technology that we have spent in this country, well, in the world, but particularly in the U.S., trying to advance everything technologically, no one's come up with a way to reproduce air that I know of. Only Mother Nature can do that. The second self-evident truth you might recognize from that is that Mother Nature can and has lived for eons without the human species. So it's not in reverse. I'm clearly an elder, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, and I'm godmother to that little nature's child you see sitting on my table out there. Back in 2011, I was, like many people, hit with everything that happened financially and pretty well lost everything. In that grim period of time, a realization came to me as I looked over my life. I realized that my grandchildren are growing up, my great-grandchildren are going to be coming along, and that if things continue as they are, my kids don't have a future. My beautiful grandchildren have no future. And that was a real awakening to me. I'd been in the consciousness movement for years, but this fact just really hit home. So I decided I should dedicate the rest of this journey to doing what little I could do to help create what I call a hope-filled future for my children and your children and all the children of the world. And I set out to do that by returning to Prescott College, where I'd graduated in the 90s. And I did a global research project that Dave mentioned to you. It was called Our Children, Our Future. My goal was to learn the most innovative models of holistic education. I wanted to see what their model was and how we could incorporate this around the world. I always viewed education as a solution to every problem. So I traveled to 18 countries, plus I did some more by Skype that I couldn't get to, and I found 15 of the most innovative models you can imagine. Models that not only served their school and their community and their purpose, but served a much greater purpose in all the world. And those were the ones I selected for my research. 3 things came out of that original research project. Excuse me. One, I discovered that there were 6 core, I called them essences, that underlie the framework of the holistic education. The second I learned was that the holistic orientation is expressed through the experience of its diverse models as they serve their individual purpose. And 3, each participant fulfilled a higher purpose in the course of its own process, providing a grassroots solution to many of the major human problems in the world. And I also observed that the higher the stated person of that institution, for instance, the highest I got was that they were set out to change the world, the greater number of the essences that they encompassed. Okay. So this was published in my book in 2015. It's called The Heart of Holistic Education, expressed through the experience of its most innovative models. There's a sample of it on the table and information. From that research in those 15, I've done a lot more work in the last couple of years, and I recognize that 2 of those models really, in my view, held the solutions that we needed to restore the earth back to its original balance with Mother Nature and to create the type of human beings that Mother Nature intended. In other words, human beings that have all the characteristics that would be an earth caregiver. Those 2, one of them is Le Site Écologique. It's a school of life in Quebec, Canada. It's 32 years old. It has the most amazing 3rd generation of young people that you've ever seen. The 2nd generation who grew up there are unbelievable teachers, educators, parents, global business leaders. They do amazing things. And this was the philosophy of one man who, as a little boy, did not build forts in the forest. He built a school. He miraculously recovered from leukemia when he was a little guy, and he grew up to see his dream fulfilled, and he's impacted the lives of many. He and his group have created a model for school, community, and business that's just amazing. I've visited many, many eco-villages around the world. There's nothing that compares to this. The one thing that sets it apart is that every parent who came there initially and have come there since devoted themselves 100% to the education of their children. And every decision that's been made for 32 years has been based on what's best for the education of the kids. I've never seen that kind of a commitment from parents anywhere else. That will be coming out in a book. The founder asked me to share his story with the world, so it's called A Fairy Tale Based in Real Life Experience. It'll be finished by midsummer. Okay. The other one was Project Nature Connect. The gentleman who is now my mentor, I'm finishing my PhD in a few weeks with him, is 87 years old. He has devoted his entire life. He was an educator, couldn't take the public school system, as most of the people that I've met could not. And back in the 60s, when it wasn't very popular, he got a grant from the Audubon Society, and he took groups of 20 students out into nature for up to 11 months. They never saw a city. They lived together, created their community, they healed, they learned, and they became attached to nature once more. From that, he observed what they were learning and how they were learning, and he recognized that we have not 5, but 54 natural attraction senses. Now, we're born with those, but our society, our educational system, our industrialized system, parents who do not become informed, which is most of us, of course, we kind of change this brain up here and manipulate it from the time a child is born, and by the time they are teenagers, they've lost the ability to use most of those. So he set out to restore that, and that's what our work is all about. My focus here today, since this is for the younger group, is from age 6 to 17. As part of my project to extend his work, because he is 87, he's very concerned. It's been out for 36 years, but he'd like to see it expanded. 5 of my graduate students are, while I'm up here playing, they're at home working on taking all of our exercises and rewriting them from the university level for the younger learner. Then we will open a website called Nature's Child, and it will give our young people an opportunity to reconnect to nature through their 54 senses. They learn to recognize them, to identify them, to apply them in their life. And believe you me, it changes a person. It just naturally changes a person. They will become an earth caregiver, and I believe that's what Mother Nature had planned all along. Okay. Many people recognize the problem with underlying everything in the world. You'll hear quite often, well, we've disconnected from nature and we went our own way and blah, blah, blah. I mean, think about it. We humans have been here for a very short time. Mother Nature's been around for 7 billion years and has acquired a heck of a lot of wisdom. How could we possibly think that we could be so much more intellectual than her? But we seem to. Okay. So our children come onto the earth with these 54 senses. They're creative, they're curious, and they're confident. And they're born with this manual. But something happened. Something went terribly, terribly wrong. And we wonder what that was. Well, at least for my generation, and I think later on, every child that came in onto the earth came here in violence, because the moment they were born, somebody spat at them on the bottom to force them to take that first gulp of life-giving air. And from there on it got worse, because unaware parents, the industrial model education, the bottom line based consumer mentality that we have in our society immediately set about redirecting the innocent mind to create a replica of ourselves. The obsolete educational system that we have in this country and most of the world, the untruths, the convenient stories that brought humanity to the brink of its own destruction. These are all the things that we are going to have to overcome in order to provide a hope-filled future for our children. And I believe that we have precious little time to do that, so that's why I'm standing here before you today. Now, if people know the problem, and the problem is that we have disconnected from nature, it seems like the answer is pretty logical. Just connect again. Everything will be fine, right? Well, not quite. So far, no one figured out a way how to do that. Dr. Michael J. Cohen came along, as I said, back in the 60s, and through his work with the children in nature and discovering their 54 natural senses, he came up with a program that allows learners to reconnect to Mother Nature as it was intended to do. Now, this program has been around for 36 years. It's been at the university level. He's on the staff of a number of universities and holds a whole mess of degrees that he didn't even work for. He just submitted his work. And we are now trying to expand the reach of this program. Okay. Our program itself is experiential in nature. It calls upon self-evident truth, just like the little example I gave you in the beginning of this. And it is followed by students in a group online. We only use email because some of my students in various parts of the world might have to walk 30 miles to have internet access. So we keep it really minimum, but we go out and do everything experientially, and we come back and share online under a certain protocol, and that's an extremely important part of the program is the sharing. And through that, then we go back, we have a couple of days period in there where we go back and respond to each other's postings, whatever they were. And through that experience, we seem to be able to reconnect at a very deep and meaningful level to Mother Nature. It impacts how we live, it impacts our values, it impacts our interests, our curiosity. A lot of things come back that our young people have lost and are having such a difficult time with in current school. But think about it, that's 85% of your capacity that you have the ability to bring back and experience your world through. So it truly teaches the learner how to think like Mother Nature acts, if I put it in one sentence for you. The student heals, the earth heals, and this basic human nature enables the learner to reach their highest personal potential. So whatever you learn here, whatever alternatives, and I am so happy to see all the different alternatives that are available to parents for their children today. It's amazing because we don't have it with the industrial educational model. But whatever you choose for them there, this is certainly going to enhance and complement that process. Now, My Nature's Child Global Classroom will be opening probably by early summer. If you have children or if you know of classes or groups that would want to get involved in this, I promise you that your child will their lives will only be enhanced by what they will learn here. We will team up a little group here with a group in another country and a different culture where they have the same language in common. This way it will not only extend to them to learn to reconnect to nature, but it gives them an opportunity to share that experience with a different culture and get different feedback. So we're hoping it will give them a little bit of a worldview along with it. If you have a single child and there's not a class or a group, that's fine. I've been approached by many of the homeschool children. In fact, they've been the greatest supporter of this. And they said, oh, but we want to be part of it. And so, thank you, David. What we will do there is to have them form a little group because many of them get together for different things. And I understand from talking to one of the presenters here in California, there are a lot of great things going with the homeschool as far as organizing. So they will create their own little group. They will in turn meet weekly at a set time online. We are setting up a website that follows Jane Goodall's Roots and Shoots. If you've seen that, it's about the most popular and successful children's nature learning program that I found. So they will be able to see each other on screen. They will go out and do all their experiences with their own group in a local area, a natural area, and then they will come in and share online their experience and exchange with each other. So we hope that by that we will be able to help many, many people around the world reconnect to nature and go on to extend that to other people and influence them. Okay. As I said, this is for ages 6 to 17, so it's perfect for what you have here. The timing of this conference is perfect. If you do have students, please leave me their name and so on out there. There's also some books out there by Dr. Cohen, his latest one, a couple of mine, including my research, and the one I just finished and getting ready to release. I'll be happy to share a little bit more of that with you a little later on. But I'm happy to see all of you here today. I hope you will continue to support endeavors like this because this is how we're going to change the world and create a hope-filled future for our children. Thank you very much. It says we have a moment for questions.
We got about 3 or 4 minutes, so maybe a time for one question or 2 questions about holistic education. Yes?
Hi, Connie. Can you give us a little bit of background on the findings that you wrote about with three essences that you mentioned in your studies? 3? Was it? You said that in your research you identified that there's 3 essences?
There's 6 essences.
6
of essences. Oh, let me get here. There are 6 groups of essences. If you want to come out to the table, I'll give you a list of all those, as well as I've got a list out there of the 54 senses if you want to take a quick peek at that too. So.
I just wanted to make a comment too. I like that you use the word self-evident in your self-evident. Do you recall saying that? Because I think that a lot of people don't know how to come to conclusions to identify something as self-evident. And so I appreciate that this is a practice, that it leads someone to identify self-evident truths that are missing in a lot of individuals' perceptions today. Just a comment.
Well, self-evident, obviously, when I did that little experience, you didn't have to have someone tell you or instruct you. You didn't have to do any research. It was clearly within you to know that this was the truth. You couldn't breathe without the air, obviously. And so you've proven it to yourself. It's just self-evident. It's not any outside resource. That's probably not a technical description of it. That's just mine.
Connie Giffin, ladies and gentlemen. Please give it up. Mother Nature rocks.